Right now I'm focusing on a time reporting system.
I'm starting up a new company. I'm looking for new connections, entrepreneurs to work with.
He is today the founder of Pricerunner and Testfreaks, as well as board member at several Swedish startup companies. Welcome our dear, beloved guest, Kristofer Arwin! How are you perceived in elementary school? What do you think other people would identify you with?
Well, I would say that they probably think that I'm very competitive, and I was mostly interested in sports. Actually, a lot more interested in sports than I was in to become good at any subjects in school.
What sports did you do?
Well, I've done most of the sports you can do, but football, bandy, table tennis, slalom skiing, mogul skiing, and some other sports as well.
Healthy.
Yeah.
Very healthy. Did you do any entrepreneurial stuff as a kid?
Yes, you know, I never knew about entrepreneurship, or I never knew about building a company. That wasn't kind of a career. But my brother and I, we were kind of buying computer games for VIC-20 and VIC-64, and we were copying those games, and we were selling them on what was called yellow pages
Yeah.
at that time, and we had some good sources who cracked the games, and then we copied them and we sold them, and that was lots of fun.
Yeah. I believe you.
You know, you remember the sound from, and then you were copying the tapes back and forth.
Interesting story. All right, and what about the years following high school? Were you up to then, like after you graduated from the Swedish gymnasium?
Yes, I studied nature science during high school, and I actually think that it kind of shaped me a little bit as a person and who I am. I think it shaped me actually more than my studies at university afterwards, because it was kind of a very kind of logic approach to things and systematic approach to things, and I think that shaped me a little bit.
Would you describe yourself as a system thinker?
Yes.
Yeah. So probably much then due to that education.
Yeah.
Start off there.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And after you finished high school, you started working as a teacher. That was your first job?
That was my first job. So just by chance, I started working as a teacher, and I was like 18 or 19, and just by chance, I got quite a lot of responsibility. I became responsible for a 7th grade class, and you know, I met the parents and I talked about the children, and I was very, very young, and I put the grade for the kids in the 9th grade. That was the last grade from school when I was like 18 or 19, and it didn't really feel weird at that point in time, but afterwards I could feel that I was so kind of young and immature, but it developed me a lot as a person, I think, to get a lot of responsibility early on. And maybe not the kind of responsibility that you would look for, really, but...
No. So why didn't you keep working as a teacher?
You know, I'm not so fond of the school system we have in Sweden today. You know, we could talk a lot about that, the school system, but you know, I think the Swedish school is great, and I think there's a good reason why there's so many successful entrepreneurs coming out of Sweden. I think it's because of the school and the culture we have here, and I think it's quite interesting when you read The Economist or some other international papers trying to analyze why Sweden is so good at creating good entrepreneurs. But I think they are not on it at all. I think it's something in the culture in Sweden and in the school system, and something that is deep in the Swedish society that enables us to get a lot of good entrepreneurs coming from this small country.
Interesting view on things. But you decided to go to university instead of keeping a school teacher or head of class.
Yeah.
And you did a bachelor of business administration with a major in finance.
Yeah.
tell us just briefly, why did you choose that subject and where did that bring you?
Yes, you know, really at that point in time, I didn't know what I wanted to be, and it was a little bit of a coincidence. But I think during the studies I studied at different universities, I kind of got in contact with the internet and.
Is this when you did your exchange?
Yes, I studied 1 year in the US, and I think this was in 1993 or something like that. And I got in contact. You know, they worked a lot with computers, and I got in contact with the internet, or I think they called it the Gopher space, and they actually used that in class. And you know, I got some ideas that, you know, actually my ideas to start Pricerunner, they started to get formed already back then in 1993 or something like that.
While you were in Utah,
yeah,
and working with the Gopher space, that was some kind of
yeah, I think that was just, you know,
internet,
yeah, or if it was a part of it, I don't know.
Yeah.
But you know, it was, you know, links, hypertext links, and then there could be information in the database that you could access.
Yeah.
So, and it, you know, it really worked, and I just felt that, you know, you could store a lot of information in a database, and you can easily access that information from anywhere. And well, I don't know if I should tell you about why I started Pricerunner, and
we'll get there later.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you decided on the traditional journey before you became an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
You chose to become a trainee.
Yeah.
Or chose, I don't know, you
Yeah.
applied and then they wanted you at Unilever.
Mm.
Tell us a little about that.
Yeah,
Why
you know,
did that happen?
you know, at least for me, I didn't know what I wanted to be, and I thought, you know, I wanted to make a career in a big company and become a managing director or CEO for a company of some size. And to me, you know, the trainee path looked kind of interesting. You get to try out a lot of different things, and maybe if you do things well, you can make a career in a big corporation. And it was great. I really learned a lot. I really learned a lot about business and big organizations and how they work and how they reason, and really how the business society works.
And already at this time you worked with the website for the GB ice
Yes,
cream
yeah.
company.
The GB ice cream company was actually quite early building their own website, and as I was interested in that area, I kind of got involved in that as well. So, you know, I've been, you know, Internet Guiden, I think, was like the first internet magazine in Sweden, and they started listing the best websites in Sweden for many years. And I've been luckily involved with several companies who have been listed among like the top 50 or 100 Swedish websites, and that was great.
What about the birth of Pricerunner? Where did you get the idea from, and how did it start?
Well, I'm a research freak. I just spoke to the photographer earlier here and talked with him about his camera, and you know, I like gadgets, but I really like the researching process before buying something, or it's part of learning something or getting good at something. But as a part of buying something, I think the price comparison part is quite interesting. And to me, it was a kind of weird that if you would buy something at on-off, it doesn't exist anymore, but at that point in time, on-off was a retailer. Let's say you were buying a TV at on-off for 3,500 Swedish kronors, and the same TV at Elgiganten, maybe just a kilometer from that store, could cost 2,000 Swedish kronors for the exact same TV. You know, that doesn't really make sense. And was it just in rare instances where this would be the situation? No, absolutely not. On most products, huge price differences. And you know, the reason for this is really that it's not a working market. It's not a transparent market. And why is it like that? Well, it's because it takes so much time to do the research and find out that maybe it was at some other store where you could buy it really cheap. Just the time, the transaction cost or the search costs were too high. So that's when I felt that, well, why don't you put just all this information in a database? So originally the idea was about to take offline price information, put it in a database online, for kind of offline transactions. But then
the online.
Then the online thing developed with e-commerce. And before, you know, the idea got realized, online was an important part of this. But really, it's about creating transparency. And, you know, I think it just annoys me. How can something be so expensive over here when the exact same thing is so cheap over here? What's wrong? How can it be like this?
So the year was 1999, and you brought 2 co-founders along. Who were they?
Yes, one of them was Magnus Wiberg, who is like my half cousin, and we went to high school together. So he was a very good friend. I know he's a very intelligent, good guy. So he was also on a career path in a big organization, but I convinced him to leave that behind and come and join me. And the third guy was Martin Alexanderson, who is a very intelligent and talented tech guy. And he was really young at that time. Before starting at Pricerunner, I got to work with another startup called Paletten, which was a joint venture between Aftonbladet and Cell in '98, and we sold all kinds of stuff online. And we had a consulting company building the e-commerce solution, and it cost a fortune just to build a simple e-commerce solution. And my idea with Pricerunner was to build something quite complex, and I just realized, you know, it won't work with having a consultancy company building this solution. We have to have the really good tech guys in-house. So I started doing some research about who knew anything about agent technology. That's what it was called back then. Software that goes out on the internet automatically and bring back information about products and prices. And 4 or 5 guys in Sweden knew anything about this. And I talked to them, and the youngest guy was Martin, and he seemed to be the best of them, and also very interested. So he was on the team.
What did you tell him to convince him?
Well, I told him that we're going to change things. This is going to be big. I'm just convinced. And I talked about the Pricerunner idea many times, and I know that's a topic. If you have an idea, should you talk to friends about it? Should you talk to other people about it because you're afraid that someone will steal it? And you know, I was afraid for a long time that I would read in the newspaper or open up my web browser and see that there is a competing service out there that is really good. That I was worried about that. But now I realize that it's so important, and that's a reason why you shouldn't talk to so many people about your idea. But you know, the thing is, you need to talk to people about an idea to get some good feedback. And I did, and most people felt that, yeah, you know, people are going to love it. But you're not going to make any money out of it. How on earth are you going to make any money out of a price comparison website? But I just felt that, you know, the logic is in the buying process, you want to go to a place where you can compare prices and then decide where to go and buy it. And if you have a lot of people there, that will be a lot of value that you can make money out of. If it's advertising or if it's like commission, we will make money out of that. I was convinced, but I didn't know exactly how.
So you have no clue about the business model when you started?
No, not really.
Where did you get funding to start Pricerunner?
Well, actually, I met some of the VCs at this time in the late 90s, and many of them were interested. And Cell Ventures, they were really interested, and they said, you know, we're going to start this company with you, and we're going to invest in it, but you don't have any experience from a startup, so come join this startup Paletten and work there for a few months, and then we will invest in Pricerunner, and we'll start it up. And that sounded great to me, and that was a great atmosphere. The late 90s was fantastic in Stockholm. The energy for startups, the ideas, I really loved it. But I think, you know, the environment we're in right now with Sub 46, I think this is great. I think it's so good for startups to be in an environment with other startups, to share ideas, and mostly about energy, I think. What was bad then is that, you know, not bad, but, you know, the companies sitting there together with me, they all had investments from Cell Ventures. I think a great thing about this space is that you don't need some special investor to sit here. It's open for all good companies that kind of can sit here. I think that's a better solution.
So you were in some kind of co-working space, and the people there helped you out and kind of giving you feedback every day. And
Yeah.
developing your idea.
Yeah.
Right. Now let's move into the talk about brilliance and despair. If you've had such times in life, I believe you do. Let's start off by you sharing a moment or a period of time from this journey that's been really a hardship. It's been, might be a period, it might be one day. Tell us about one of those periods in life or one of those stages.
Well, so many interesting things happened during these years, but with Pricerunner, one thing that was interesting was that in 1999 and in 2000, the companies that got the most attention in media in Sweden were the companies that had the highest burn rate. So it was companies like Bo.com and Let's Buy It and some other companies. And we could see that we were developing really well. We thought we had an interesting company. And we could see that our investors were a little bit frustrated that we didn't get the same kind of attention in media as these companies. And there was a push from different stakeholders to kind of increase our burn rate, because that's what everyone thought was good at that point in time. But on the other hand, we are a price comparison website. It's in our DNA to kind of save cost. So, but it felt weird, we didn't spend so much on marketing. We still did spend a lot of money on marketing, but not so much on marketing. So it was a little bit weird. Later on I can feel that, we really focused on building a good business, a profitable business. But when you're in the middle of something, it's not so easy to really see clearly what is good long term. But another situation that I think was quite interesting, and I don't want to get back into the same situation, was in 2001. In the spring of 2001, we had been, I'm sure a lot of you entrepreneurs here have been trying to raise some capital to your business. And that is very, very difficult, and it's time consuming and it's energy consuming. And we started doing this in the autumn of the year 2000. And it was the .com crash in March 2000. So it was a little bit difficult, but our business were doing well. But then, the market continued to go down and go down and go down. So the investors that said that we're going to invest in November 2000, they didn't invest. And we had a substantial burn rate. But the thing is, we also had the valuation of the company and the plans. So if we would reduce the burn rate, it would mean that we had to change the plan. And if we change the plan, make it more conservative, the valuation would go down. So we were kind of in a difficult situation. So we had to kind of go ahead with the plan, even though we knew that, with this burn rate, it doesn't really feel well. And in the spring of 2001, we had like a few weeks left of cash, and then when things looked really, really horrible, they signed the papers and the cash came in, and then we could actually change our plan and reduce the burn rate. So
how did you come to that point? Like, how did you come to that point? You had a couple of weeks left, or the company would crash. What? For you as
it was a very stressful situation, and if you remember, 2000, 2001, 2002, the stock market was going down like this, and then it went up a little bit, and it was going down like this, and went up a little bit. So 1 week, it looks good. The investors are happy. Now we want to invest again. The next week, sorry, we have to go back and talk about this. It was very frustrating. So the experience is that, if you're building a company, you need to have a long runway. If you have a little cash, you don't expect that you can raise cash in 4 months' time or 5 months' time, because it takes a lot of time. I think it's important to make sure that you have, you have to decide if you need 12 months or 18 months, but 4 months' time. Doesn't work like that. But in the late 90s, now you have cash for 4 months, no problem. 4 months from now, you'll get new cash. Don't worry about that.
when you and I had a fika the other day at Espresso House, good coffee by the way at Espresso House. You said that when you woke up in the morning during that spring of 2001, it was in this process. You were in the middle of this process, and it was like going up and down and up and down, and the stock market was going down. You told me that when you woke up in the morning and you turned on your TV and you saw that the stock market was going down, there was something in your stomach that kind of just crunched. How was that feeling? And were you about to give up during this time, or how did you feel?
No,
as a person
it was absolutely horrible, and you know, so it's just my advice: don't put your company in a situation like that. You know, when you see on the horizon that you need more time, slow down.
Right. Do you have any other examples of time of struggle than that period?
You know, we did a lot of mistakes, and I told you before that we started focusing on a few other things that we shouldn't have focused on, and so it's for the entrepreneur, it's a lot about integrity and believe in yourself, and I think the self-confidence aspect is so important for an entrepreneur. You have to be convinced deeply inside of yourself that what you're doing is the right thing, because so many people around you will challenge it. And not when you're doing great, but most companies don't do great all the time. And it's so easy to start up with other solutions when you're not doing great. So you have to be convinced deep down.
Gut feeling about something, all right. But and then in contrast to having a too high burn rate. So if you're too self-confident and you just that's not a good thing. Or you're saying two different things here.
No. I'm saying burn rate, that's the most horrible thing for an entrepreneur. You want to be in the black figures as soon as possible.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, and then on the personal level, because this is about your entrepreneurship, but on the personal level, have you had any challenges during this time that has kind of spilled over onto your entrepreneurial journey? And how you handled that, kind of the balance between work and your personal or private life in that sense?
No, not really. I got my first kid in 2004 when I sold the company, and I was sitting on the phone and in front of the computer for maybe 4 months, just talking to potential buyers and to our own owners and to lawyers, and I didn't see much of my first kid during the first 4 months, and I regret that. But I made a priority back then. Now I'm prioritizing things differently.
In what sense are you prioritizing things differently today?
Well, I don't have I'm prioritizing my kids more.
How does that make you feel?
Good.
Good. Yeah. And does your wife like you more today than she did back then? No, you don't have to answer that question. And as I said, I guess it's a good mix of people here today. There's maybe about 50% entrepreneurs and 25-30% entrepreneurs, and then a couple of hangarounds like curious people, soon-to-be entrepreneurs, people in the ecosystem, and some investors maybe too. Advice to us, the people in this room. Do you have any specific pieces of advice, like for example about the business plan thing, and maybe work-life balance, and anything that comes to mind?
Well, I believe that that you say that the idea is not so important. It's execution that's building the business, and that's absolutely true. When we started Pricerunner, probably that year, 100 price comparison websites were started all over the world. So with many ideas, they are like flowing around in the air. So it's not the uniqueness about the idea that's the thing, but I think if you like the idea, it's so much easier to put in all that energy that is required. So I'm really thinking, what areas do I like? What business ideas do I like? And I think when you really like something, then that's when you don't have a problem spending as much energy and time as needed on it.
Did you feel that with Pricerunner?
Yes, I felt that more with Pricerunner than with Testfreaks. Testfreaks was more that this is logic. We're experts in this area. We know how to do this, and it looked really good. But then things changed. But you know, it's important to have the heart 100% in the business.
What do you do at the time when you don't feel like your heart is in the business anymore? Is that what do you do at the time when you feel like your heart is not with you anymore?
Well, I don't think it's a black and white thing, but it's something that I don't know. It's better if you love the idea, if you love this business, if it's an interest of yours.
All right, questions. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, from the time that you had the idea about Pricerunner until you developed it, like what did it feel like? Did it feel like this is going to be hard? It's going to be a long journey? Or did it feel like, no, I'm convinced, I'm going to do this, and I just need to do this, this, and that to make it? Like, did it feel hard or did it feel easy?
So the way to realizing your dream or idea about Pricerunner, how did it feel? Because you start off as a student with this idea in Utah, and then you were a trainee and decided to go for that. But how did it feel?
Well,
what made you take a leap of faith?
My biggest worry was that this service would be a competing service would be up and running, and that would kind of block my future. So I need to do it, and I thought that for a long time, but I didn't do it. And I think there are so many ideas that were started a little bit too early when the market was not there, and they didn't have they didn't get the time to really prove the business idea. And now, maybe 15 years later, it's proven that the idea was good. So timing is important. On the other hand, had we started the company 2 years earlier, maybe would have sold the company for a huge number in 1999 when stock market was up like that and .coms were up like that. So I don't know.
How did you manage those ups and downs? Because you're like, one day you'd be like, oh, I got to start this and do this now, and the next day you're like, no, I want to be safe and secure. How did you manage?
No, that's difficult.
And what was the turning point?
That's difficult. And you know, you're walking around and you have this. You're convinced you're sitting on a great idea and you know how to do this. And that's eating you, and it should eat you. That's why you start the company, to remedy that.
Good answer. One more question up front, and then I think we'll round off.
Yeah, so you were talking about the investor behavior in like 2001, 2002.
Yeah.
So that people are backing off as soon as the stock market was going down. So my guess is that was because the IPO market were bad when the stock market was down, right?
Yeah.
That's a pretty short-term way of thinking. Were everyone like that? And second question, weren't you looking for people that were more long-term investors than those people?
So question, did all the investors have the short perspective in mind? And if not, why didn't you look for long-term investors?
I think that it's very difficult to get cash, and it's very difficult to be picky. I think that a lot of the investors that invested a lot in the late 90s, they don't exist anymore, and today they have a very different approach to things.
Back then, people were just feeling lucky, but today it's more sustainable.
Yes, I think it's sustainable, but it's challenging to be a VC investor because, you know, early stage is a difficult phase. Lots of business ideas that are really good, startups that don't get funding, and that's a challenge. And that's a challenge for Sweden, I believe. That's one of the biggest challenges for Sweden, because I believe there are so many good entrepreneurs here, so many good business ideas, but it's very, very difficult to get funding.
So what do you do if you don't find the funding? Do you...
Well, I think a lot of entrepreneurs is facing that reality, and they are closing down, and they go about their lives, and they think about some other idea, and maybe they can get that idea to fly.
Right. And with that being said, Kristofer, Tack så mycket. Tusen tack. Thank you so much for coming here today and sharing your story with us. Big round of applause.